My name is Brandon Dotson, and I'm going to talk to you about formative assessment in the woodshop. Formative assessment in manufacturing production is the single most important tool a teacher or a student can use. After all, the lumber isn't the only thing being graded throughout a project. Measure twice and cut once. In woodworking, when we rush, we make mistakes. It's important to measure twice just to make sure we aren't making a mistake. If we are making a mistake, that second measure gives us a chance to fix the problem. Measuring understanding. This is just like formative assessment. As teachers, we are measuring a student's knowledge or understanding many times just to make sure there aren't any mistakes in their learning along the way. If you don't check, you might not be getting the whole picture. Hitting the nail on the head. Clear learning targets are important to student learning, and formative assessments are a great tool for making sure students are aimed at these nails or targets. Learning blueprint. Every project starts with a plan or a blueprint. So does learning. An example of a formative assessment for learning goals is having students create a learning blueprint, a plan that shows the final product and the steps necessary to get there. Using examples and models. Asking students to compare their work to an example or a teacher demo model is another great formative assessment that helps aim students towards the learning goals. Close enough isn't a phrase we want to hear when assessing student learning, and exceeding the example work might be a motivator. Comparing student work to a strong example piece also helps students self-assess their learning and set goals for improvement. Another self-assessment idea would be a digital learning blog where students make notes on each day's work, as well as a plan for tomorrow's work. An interactive community documenting app such as Google Docs would allow this blog to provide peer as well as teacher feedback. This feedback, along with student self-assessments, is great for informatively assessing student learning and making corrections where necessary. Feedback is a good quality feedback is important to student learning. And because one of the characteristics of quality feedback is that it occurs during learning, formative assessment is a powerful feedback tool with many options available. Effective feedback must also direct attention to the intended learning. It must address partial understanding, not think for the student, and be limited to corrective information that the students can work on immediately or take action on right away. I use a great strategy for making sure I give feedback to everyone. It's called time cards. Students write down what they've been working on, and I review it with them by the end of the week. Students hand in time cards at the end of the week with any questions they may have for me for the following week. Putty and paint. It's great for making a carpenter what he ain't, not so much for teaching. Formative assessments help teachers diagnose students' learning problems instead of covering them up. Correcting the problem instead of hiding it is the mark of true craftsmanship both in woodworking and teaching. In diagnosing their problems, students may have a partial understanding, they may have flaws in reasoning, and they may have misconceptions. An effective formative assessment can help diagnose these learning needs in the students and create an instructional plan for their needs. I like to do an interview. I interview the students for a job that requires the skills being learned. Use their responses and their explanation of their qualifications for the job to diagnose their learning. Students can interview each other and provide feedback to each other in preparation. Once you've diagnosed it, the key elements of formative assessments are that it occurred during learning and help shape the instruction and learning before it's too late. Focusing your instruction on these diagnosed learning needs and providing an opportunity for practice is crucial here. Practice, practice, practice. This one's simple. After focusing your instruction on what a student knows and doesn't know, let them practice and continue to offer formative feedback. In my workshop, a student never turns in anything until they feel it's an example of their best work possible. Here's a couple examples to compare formative assessment and summative assessment. The big one is that it happens during learning, or summative happens after the learning. Learning what they're doing and what they're doing currently versus what they've shown you in the past that they can do. So what's the point? No matter what formative assessment you use, the goal is the same. We're assessing to help learn rather than assessing what has already been learned. We are operating on a not yet mentality rather than not enough. How can I help you learn more versus sorry, you didn't learn enough. But wait, there's more. Formative assessment has been shown to increase student motivation, student self-efficacy, engagement in learning, and overall cognitive processing. So you need the right tools for the job. In woodworking, it's important to have a plan and be able to match the correct tools to each unique circumstance. Sharpening and making adjustments throughout the work are essential to improving projects and making a beautiful final product.